Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Real Talk. It's Lucas here, and I hope that today's episode informs and inspires you to have your own real conversations. As always, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Trivan, maker of trucks, trailers, and enclosure buildings tailored to your needs. Be sure to check them out at trivan.com. A huge thanks to them for sponsoring the show and making it possible. One other quick note before we get into today's episode is that if you are willing and able, if you could leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on any of the podcast networks or platforms that allow for it, such as Spotify or Apple Podcast, that will be much appreciated as it helps get the word out there and lets people know what we're all about. So, with that in mind, on to the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. This is a fun one coming up for everybody. I'm excited to chat with today's guest. She is the newest member of the Reform Perspective team. You may have seen her in productions such as RPTV, but now she is joining RP full-time for a 4-month period, and then we'll see what the future holds after that. So starting in the new year, which by the time you listen to this probably will be the new year. So happy New Year to anybody listening right now. And today's guest is Alexandra Ellison. So first of all, just thanks for coming on and joining us, Alexandra. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to, just talk about a little bit more about RP and plans for the future.
Totally. So I think before we get to the future, which is, we were just chatting pre-show, is obviously very exciting about the work you're going to be able to do as a journalist with Reform Perspective and the important topics you'll be able to cover in depth. We should probably just get to know you and see what you're all about. Because from what I understand, you've had a bit of an interesting path, kind of leading up to connections finally and landing this job with RP. So maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, what kind of got you interested in this career path, and just a little bit about who Alexandra is.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Victoria, BC. So I'm a West Coast island person. I'm actually here visiting family right now. And I'm the middle of 5 siblings. So it's a busy home, Christian family. So we grew up going to a local PCA church, which turned into another church plant that we were kind of a part of. So lots of long nights having dinners in like old churches. And so I'm really grateful for my upbringing and, the fact that I was raised in a Christian home and was able to hear the gospel at such a young age. But my interests kind of lean towards a mix of everything. As a kid, we were super involved in sports. So I come from a big basketball family. So most weekends consisted of going to basketball tournaments, and that was kind of a big part of growing up. But I kind of had that interest for storytelling actually. When I was around 11 years old, I loved collecting American Girl dolls. So I'm actually in my childhood room right now, and I have a 6'5" dollhouse that my dad and I built when I was a kid. So they have all these different rooms, and I would collect all this stuff. But during that time, it was around like 2013. It was kind of American Girl doll videos on YouTube were kind of a big trend. So people would do stop animation videos where you would take pictures and then move the dolls and then take pictures and then string all the clips together and then add voiceovers to it. And I was like watching that as a kid, and I'm like, I could do something like that. So I ended up like stealing my dad's camera and throwing together some videos. And I started being pretty consistent with it. And then I ended up actually growing a bit of a platform. So I think it was like by the time I was 13, I was asking for my parents' credit card information to send to Google AdSense. So I was able to start making some money off of it. But because of that influence, I was, kind of writing scripts. I was telling stories. A lot of them were, funny, comedic things. And I was learning like the process of all these, process of editing videos. And it's funny kind of looking back on that because that's a lot of the stuff that I'm now doing today. But I did that actually up until just like my final years of high school. And then YouTube had this thing called YouTube copper rules where you couldn't make money off of children's content. So that kind of faded out, and I was pretty involved in basketball at the time. So I ended up studying. I ended up staying in Victoria my first year of college and playing basketball and then studying business, just kind of general studies. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, and then I ended up kind of looking back into my later years and kind of praying about it, speaking with some mentors in my life. And after COVID had hit, basketball's over, then, the opportunity came for me to kind of head to journalism school. And that's kind of, yeah, I don't know if I want to go ahead talk more about that or.
Well, yeah, no, that's a great primer. That's a super interesting way to get into storytelling and making content online. That was that was back in the glory days of YouTube in terms of like making money and less restrictions and before the adpocalypse and all that kind of stuff. What like how big did this channel get? Like how many subs did you get?
Yeah, so the channel had like 15,000 subscribers and then like over like 4 million views. So we kind of there were some videos, the series, it was called The Dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this doll goes to a dentist and has this like, crazy experience, the dentist like poking at her teeth. And the first video got like 300,000 views. And then my dad was like, okay, we have to keep making these ones. So we made it into a series. I think I made like 7 episodes of that. My dad would come in, he would record voices as well. And we would pitch his voice so that it would sound like higher. Cause it's like these little, yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's amazing. That's a super cool thing to do with your dad. That's a lot of fun. Okay, right on. So you got the storytelling aspect into YouTube, basketball, big part of your life too, and then COVID kind of cuts that short. But it seems like it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. That allows you to focus a little more on your studies and then kind of take this tack into journalism. So was your interest in journalism primarily because you like stories and the storytelling aspect, or did you go into it with a bit of more of a mission mindset, like, oh, I care about this cause and I want to tell stories about this? What was kind of your thought process heading into journalism school?
Yeah, so kind of the first process behind it was I was kind of thinking more the storytelling angle. I didn't know necessarily what stories I wanted to tell, but just because I had these skills, I was thinking, well, this could be a good angle. For me, I wasn't exposed to a lot of maybe independent media. Like coming from the West Coast, I think it's very normalized for us to just have the CBC running in the background. So having that perspective, I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this field, but I don't necessarily know what the end goal is going to be just because of my strong Christian convictions. And I'm like, how, as a Christian, can I even work in something like mainstream media? So then what really changed for me was after completing my first year of journalism school in Toronto, actually, my pastor's wife had told me about this program, and it's called the World Journalism Institute. And it's a 2.5-week program hosted by World Magazine, and it's in Iowa at Dordt University. And it's an intense training for like 25 college journalism students on being a Christian journalist. So they would teach like terms like biblical objectivity and how as Christians we can really tell the truth. We can tell the truth better because knowing the gospel, we have an objective reality. And it was really, really exciting to be able to connect and meet all these different Christians that are interested in the same field as me, and just seeing that there is opportunity out there for young Christian journalists. And it was cool because they brought in lawyers from Alliance Defending Freedom, so the people that had overturned Roe v. Wade, and they were able to come in and mock press conferences, and we learned different skills, like all the podcasting skills, all the video skills, and all the writing. And it was super intense. I didn't really sleep at all. But that was like a really life-changing experience just to get connected with different Christian journalists, just because I didn't necessarily have that during my undergraduate degree.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, that's super neat. That sounds like a very like interesting and informative experience, and it seems like it really captivated your interest and like made you want to pursue it further. So you come back from that then, right? So then you go further in your studies in journalism. I guess how far along are you now? Like, are you all finished? Where is that all at? And what kind of experiences did you have in Toronto? And I understand you moved to Ottawa at a certain point. So tell us a bit about like your time between Toronto and Ottawa and some of those experiences.
Yeah, so after I had finished that World Journalism Institute program, then I headed off to finish one more year of school in Toronto. So I graduated this past summer, and over the course of my undergraduate degree, I was able to kind of take on different opportunities, like writing for the student union, kind of more blog style posts, kind of what students are doing on campus, very kind of broad kind of topics. But then I was able to kind of get an opportunity to write for World on a freelance contract basis as a Canadian correspondent. So I've been doing that since last year. So during that time, I've been able to report on a bunch of different stories. A lot of stories on euthanasia, especially what's happening in Canada. Lots of Americans don't necessarily know what is happening with and how severe the situation has gotten. But so I was able to finish off my undergraduate degree. I had to actually finish an internship. So I did an internship at the CBC this past summer. So I did write about it for Reform Perspective in the latest magazine, and it was a really great experience in being able to I think just to be a Christian in a space like that is a very challenging spot. But I was able to learn a lot of really great skills that I think I'll be able to take working in independent media. And I think it's important for Christians to be in places like that, because sometimes when you're in those like very niche kind of echo chambers, all you hear is the same kind of constant ideas being spewed around. But then having someone actually come in there with a different opinion, different voice, I think is really important to have that. So I finished up that CBC internship this past summer, graduated, and then I moved to Ottawa in September because I've been doing the ARPA internship. So half the week I was doing worldview training at the ARPA office, and then half the week I was working on Parliament Hill for the past 4 months. So doing that, and then also doing RPTV stuff. So it's been busy past 4 months, but it's been exciting.
Yeah, that sounds busy, but that does sound like a ton of fun. Okay, there's a couple areas to dive in there. So, okay, let's go back to the CBC, and then we'll hit some ARPA stuff and Parliament Hill, because for some listeners may know this, but I used to work on Parliament Hill. This is going back like 6 years ago. I did the Brain and Boot internship. So I actually worked for Arnold Viersen. So I was watching your RPTV with him, and I was like, yeah, fond memories. He has not changed a bit. So anywho, okay, let's go back to the CBC. So what was like your biggest lesson from your time at the CBC? Like, you do this, it's required from a school perspective. You need to have an internship, but like, what did you learn there? Was there like, and I'm using the word like too much, so I'm just becoming self-conscious of that right now. Was there an experience or like a lesson you really drew out of that time? Are they more professional? Is that a fair thing to say about the CBC? Or what did you learn from your time at the CBC, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so I think part of it, mainly was going in to kind of get that production kind of perspective. I was working for like a live radio newscast. So the hours were from like 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. And we were doing a show on the hour starting from 5 o'clock to 11 a.m. So in that sense, it was a lot of breaking news that I never really personally had to, report on any issues where, I was feeling, this was going against my Christian values. But I think like the biggest thing for me was just kind of interacting with the other interns and with different coworkers who maybe had never necessarily even met a Christian before. So I think that was really interesting, because I think I spoke about in my piece, there was a reporter that was reporting on a story, and she was so confused that there was a church service that was happening inside of inside of a basement or like an old mall. There was a church service that was happening inside of an old mall, and she couldn't even comprehend the fact that this small church plant was happening inside of there. So it's just kind of not having, it's a lot of people that are reporting on issues like religion or issues that are happening in the church, but they don't even have any kind of historical church knowledge. So I think that was something interesting to learn. Just not saying that people have that, and that's why it's important to be interacting and as Christians being working in all different fields because I mean our voices are so important.
Hmm. Do you think that's a large factor in the leftward bias of mainstream media, that they don't even consider? Yeah, they don't have this knowledge of like what a Christian actually stands for.
Yeah, and I think that's like the biggest issue that they had was it was more looking, they want to kind of fit the diversity quotas. But in many sense, you could look across the room and go, wow, there's, all these people. It's very multicultural from, different, they're all from different, countries or something like that. Yet in reality, it's just kind of the outside look. Most people are quite left leaning. And um, so yeah, I think that reflects in a lot of the reporting that we see today, and I think that uh, it's something that really needs to be challenged. And I think there's also a lot of ethical issues when it comes to the government funding of the organization, but that's on a different level.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a topic in and of itself. Did you, and maybe that your time there was too short to kind of get a sense of this, but we've seen many organizations, news organizations over the last couple of years have many layoffs. Just the way the industry is going, it's more and more difficult to make money, hence the government subsidies, and then the ethical challenges that arise on account of that. But the CBC, of course, publicly funded, has less pressure in that regard. Did you get a sense that you were working in a place where like things were downsizing and things were heading in a downward direction, or are they more insulated from that given the steady stream of funding that the CBC has?
Yeah, I think no, they were still lots of the staff they take on a lot of like contract freelancers, so they don't necessarily even hire a lot of people. So I think it's like almost 2/3 of the staff, young staff, don't actually have like a stable job there. So they are still, although they get that government funding, they still feel the kind of hits, especially because a lot of the shows that they have actually don't get, especially in some parts like Alberta, they really don't get too many views or too many clicks. So as much as the government funding helps, it's not, it's still a industry that in many sense it could be dying in the mainstream sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. They definitely still have to sell ads. So I'm sure if their metrics are down, that's hurting them. Okay, let's shift into ARPA and then kind of RP. What was so you grew up on the West Coast, not like you go to a PCA church, but not part of like the typical Dutch Reformed in terms of like the KNRC, URC kind of world. So for many of our listeners, of course, those are the churches they kind of attend. So for someone like yourself, that seems to come out of the blue, out of the West Coast, and like, oh wow, this is fantastic. But like, how did you hear about like ARPA, and what was the connection there originally?
Yeah, so this was last January. I was writing a story on, it was about Josh Alexander. He had been protesting against like transgender ideology happening in his school in Ontario. And I needed to find, a voice from a lawyer to speak to for a story. So I was, just doing some news gathering research, and then I found an article that Andre Schutten had wrote, something about constitutional freedoms, and I had reached out to him, and then that was actually really like my first kind of yeah, understanding, finding out what ARPA does. And I thought that was really exciting. I'm like, I'm a Reformed Christian, and yeah, I would love to get involved in politics in some way. So then that was in January that I had done an interview with Andre, and then shortly after that, they had announced that they were doing a internship program. So then I was like, oh yeah, I might as well apply. And I'm graduating this year. I don't necessarily know what I wanted to like, where I want to go. So I thought it was a great opportunity, and it's been like such a blessing, just all the people that I've been able to meet down there, and all of the worldview training that they've been able to give.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you want to dive into a bit of what you've been learning over the course of this past fall with ARPA, some of this worldview training? Is it, of course, like you've done an undergraduate degree now. So like what kind of level is this training at, and like who's kind of participating in this program?
Yeah, so we had three interns, and we would our first kind of 2.5 days of the week we'd be working in an MP's office. So I was working with MP Kelly Block. So those first 2.5 days was strictly on the Hill, and then we would come 2.5 days to work in the ARPA office. And lots of the classes we kind of started off by getting a like from a legal perspective, and then also kind of just a background into politics. I really wanted to kind of take this on because my degree is specifically on like media communications and journalism. So and a lot of learning a lot more technical skills rather than maybe some of the history or research in regards to specific political issues. So I really wanted to get that understanding, and I also went to a secular institution. So it was really great. We were able to just kind of really understanding Christian history and how, like, here in Canada, like the reason why that we have a lot of the rights today is because of Christianity. And we did a lot of courses on that. And we also had a lot of guest speakers come in for the kind of second half where we focused on a lot of issues, whether it's regards to euthanasia, abortion, and yeah, so we would have assignments sometimes. So it's, similar to maybe like a kind of a university program where you would hand in assignments. We didn't get graded on anything, but it's nice to be able to learn and to be able to get good feedback without having to have a red marks all over your work. So I really enjoyed that kind of first part. And then the second part of technically, I'll still be working as part of the internship in January in a different MP's office. The plan was kind of to go to provincial legislatures, but then it was a little bit hard because it's kind of the first year of the program. So then we're gonna stay in Ottawa for another 4 months.
Right on. Cool. Well, yeah, maybe you want to share with our listeners a bit about what that work on the Hill is like exactly. So you're working for Kelly Block, if memory serves me correctly. That's a Saskatchewan MP. And so, yeah, what's it like working in an MP's office?
Yeah, so it's really fun because there's always, I mean, you have done the same thing, right? So there's always something new. And so it's a lot, it kind of just depends on, I've spoken to other people that work in MP's office and they will do completely different jobs. But I was able to do a lot of kind of play to my strengths and do a lot of social media work, a lot of writing, just kind of keeping up with the issues, and just like kind of always just being prepared. You can get to go to question periods sometimes, and see Pierre and Trudeau kind of always. It's really fun. It's just you get like a house pass as well, so you can kind of have access to run around all over the place, and the cafeteria is very cheap. So that's one perk of working on the Hill.
True, true. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. It's a fun environment, eh? Like it's fast paced, but it's like it's all people do. Like if you work in that, I found it was like it's very all consuming. But yeah, it's yeah. I was able to do a bunch of similar things on the social media side, and there's a name for the newsletters that MPs send out to.
Oh yeah, like the MP report kind of.
Yeah. I thought there was a certain name for it, but anywho, yeah. If you ask Arnold, he's got all sorts of stories about
Or
the crazy
householders, like the papers that you design. Yeah. Householders.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
It's a cool job. It's definitely yeah. You learn a lot, and the people are generally pretty good. Okay, cool. So we talked about ARPA a bit, and of course, I'm assuming that was kind of the connection to Reform Perspective once you kind of enter that sort of world, because RP and ARPA are pretty closely connected in a lot of ways.
Actually, it actually wasn't.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, so I was able to get connected with Mark and John this past summer because I saw that they had attended this year's World Journalism Institute at Dort.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that they made a video, and I was like, And then the program director had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, there was some Canadians that were here this year." And I'm like, "That would be great to, yeah, be able to reach out." So we set up a Zoom call in the summer just to kind of talk with them. And it was kind of cool that we had that connection. And I actually didn't know all Mark's background with ARPA. So after finding that out, that was pretty cool to kind of see how God puts different people in your lives. Just, you never know what could kind of come out of it.
Yeah, that's super cool. So providential. Okay. Well, let's chat a bit about RPTV then. So this has kind of been a new project that RP's taken on, and you've led the charge creating these episodes with the other two gens over from Faith to Film. Yeah, maybe give our listeners who haven't checked it out kind of an overview of like certain topics you've covered, what the kind of mission of what the purpose of this little program is, and then maybe some future episode ideas or future topics you plan on covering.
Yeah, so RPTV is kind of a offshoot video production that we've been working on. So some of the videos that I've done have been kind of news oriented. So there was the first video that I did was the 1 million children march. So that happened in September in Ottawa. So being in Ottawa, there's kind of protests that happen all the time. So this was kind of more of a breaking news sort of story. But then we've also kind of wanted to be able to do news stories as well as more profile or like longer standing stories. So I've been able to, profile someone with the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, so like a pro-life advocacy group. And then I've also been able to do a few videos with members of parliament. So we did a video with Arnold Viersen about his work to combat pornography. And then also we were able to do a recent video with Kathy Wagenthal on all of the pro-life legislation that she's put over the year. So it's been great being in Ottawa to be able to, really be on the ground and speaking with the people that are, really working to put forth these different bills. And then we've plans for the future is that we're hoping to kind of keep the magazine, keep the podcast, and then keep the videos a bit more cohesive in a sense that we're going to have a magazine story and then have a video that kind of will direct you to that and have a similar theme to it. Because right now we're having trouble with the sense of there's some news stories, but then there's some more broader topic stories. So we're hoping to kind of be able to connect that. So in the new year, we're going to be working on just getting more cohesive. But it's been really exciting and great working with Kyle and David. They've been doing a great job editing the videos.
Yeah, for sure. I've been really impressed by the quality, and I think it's fantastic. So I'm excited to see what you guys continue to produce. Are there any it's like topics or issues that are near and dear to your heart, or things you find interesting that you're thinking, okay, in 2024, I hope we can cover some of these issues or talk about these people or anything like that.
Yeah, so during actually the ARPA internship, we read a bunch of books, and one of the books that has really stood out to me is Them Before Us by Katie Faust. So what she does is she really talks about the issues in today's age about IVF and surrogacy. And I would love to be able to talk more about that. I think it's a conversation, especially in Canada, that is really not spoken about. Especially, I think sometimes it's not spoken about within the church. So I'd love to be able to cover issues like that. She really emphasizes on how children's rights should be put over adults' rights, and just really emphasizing the significance of the family and having a mother and a father in your life. So I would, really like to focus on, family issues. And so that's kind of maybe some of the interests, where some of my interests lie.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a topic people care about and are interested in. Like we did an episode, I did that one with Justina Van Manen. It's going back. It would have been earlier this year, but we talked all about IVF, snowflake adoption, all these kind of things. and the ethics around it. And yeah, I think it isn't talked about enough, and more people are facing fertility issues. So it's going to continue to be an important topic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys can cover on that, and yeah, get some expert opinions and bring it all together in a nice little video, which, by the way, people, you can totally check that out on YouTube. So for anybody who's already watching this on the Real Talk YouTube, you should just head over to Reform Perspectives YouTube channel. If you type in RPTV, I found actually just typing in RPTV still didn't come up. So you got to make sure you type in Reform Perspective, because I guess, I don't know, YouTube censoring it or whatnot, or if we're just not good at the algorithm game and SEO. But go find it, check it out, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and make sure you find all the new episodes of RPTV, because it's some good content for sure. Okay, so maybe I just want to throw back to a question I thought about earlier in terms of kind of your journey into the journalism space. So we talked a bit about your love of story and the American Doll YouTube channel and whatnot, and then you go down to do this world journalism training for 2 weeks or so. Did you ever have any sort of interest in politics, or did you kind of just get into politics over time as a function of being in journalism? And, of course, a lot of journalism revolves around politics. Was that an interest for you growing up, or it's been something more gradual over the years?
Yeah, I think it has been something more gradual. But both my parents are teachers, so our conversations around the dinner table where we would talk about politics a lot. So I think it's always been something that has, and especially I think just taking in our Christian convictions, it's always been something that, we think that we need to be able to speak out on a lot of these issues. So I think that, yeah, from a young age, I did like Model UN in high school. So I was into kind of international issues. So then it was just kind of that transition in the sense that journalism and politics are, yeah, quite related. So then, yeah, so it kind of came just naturally. And I think at first, when I was a kid, we were obsessed with like American politics. I think we get a lot of US media, so the kind of Daily Wire type Ben Shapiro stuff you see all the time. But I would, yeah, love for us to get more good, Christian conservative content within Canada.
For sure. The American media, yeah, it's everywhere. It's in your face all the time. So I don't blame you on that one. Okay, cool. So let's maybe look towards the future a little bit in terms of probably when people are listening to this, it'll be January 2024. So you're on a 4-month kind of contract with RP, and then hopefully with plans to go full time if Lord willing, if all of that kind of works out. But what are some of your plans for the next 4 months with RP? In terms of like the type of content you'll be doing? Are you going to be doing a bunch of writing? Are you going to be doing more and more RPTV stuff? I think from what I understand, you'll be able to kind of jump on the podcast now and again. So we might see you as a regular guest on the roundups. You're more than welcome to jump on and do that. But yeah, what are kind of your plans, and what's kind of the guidance you've got from RP as to what the next 4 months will look like for you, and the kind of content you'll do?
Yeah, so far we've kind of discussed it's going to just really be a mix of everything. So I'll be kind of taking on about 2 days a week working. So whether that is writing, I'm assuming I'm going to be doing a lot of writing for the magazine. I know that they really want to be able to have just a bunch more pieces, a bunch more kind of quality content, and then for videos, as I kind of spoke about, we're hoping to maybe do a few less videos, but just have them be kind of top-notch quality. And yeah, so maybe more being able to direct people from the magazine to watch the videos so that we can kind of keep that targeted audience. And then I'm hoping to be able to help out with the weekly newsletter and just kind of get a hand at trying different things. I've never really had this kind of print magazine experience before. It's been a lot more digital, so I'm excited to see kind of the background and just see how everything has been thrown together, because although I've written some stuff for RP, I've kind of just more thrown it off to John to make some edits rather than be on the grounds working. So I'm excited to get started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's become quite the team like over the last couple of years. If I take off my podcast host hat and put on my inside the RP hat on sitting on the board, yeah, there's just a ton of like part-time contributors and Mark and John kind of hold down the fort and organize everybody and make sure the magazine gets out on time, which is had a great track record over last year, which was a big problem in the past. So I think the organization's taking great steps forward, and yeah, it's gonna be really cool to see what you guys can accomplish over the next few months. I just, and this wasn't on the outline or anything, but I thought this might be an interesting question I would pose to you. So I'm 25, on the younger side of things, certainly for people involved in RP, and I've seen like, so for myself, I've kind of been off social media since like the summer, and it's been a great experience. I don't really miss it that much. I did like social media a lot. Like I mentioned, I did it in Ottawa. It's a lot of fun, but it was just whatever. I was like, I don't really feel like I'm getting a lot of value out of this, and it's just a lot of time wasted. So where I'm going with this though is, in my mind, I think there is going to be a bit of a shift, at least maybe amongst conservative Christians, in terms of moving back toward more traditional types of media. Not all traditional types of media, like like podcasts instead of radio, perhaps, but like print is pretty hard to censor. And I think RP has a really unique spot and unique ability right now with the distribution that we have on the print magazine. Like it goes to 10,000 homes. So that's at least, in theory, 10,000 readers, and you can multiply that a little more versus this podcast will do like 2,000. So I think it's pretty cool, this opportunity we have in print. And I'm kind of curious for your feedback, your perspective on that, being another young person involved, growing up in a media age, an internet age, doing journalism primarily online. Do you see amongst like your peers, maybe some sort of shift away from like just taking a break from social media and not consuming content in that media as much? Or am I just a complete outlier and I'm just wishing this trend upon people and it's just here to stay and it's just going to keep getting stronger?
Yeah, no, I totally see that shift of kind of transitioning away from social media. Like I found for myself during COVID, I was on TikTok wasting, I found like a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
And I deleted TikTok like a year ago. And I think, just really not having that. And then, I've kind of been going back and forth with, wanting to delete all types of social media like Twitter and like Instagram, but then part of me wants to still keep it because I think, Twitter nowadays I think can be good to kind of stay informed on, what is happening. And it has kind of gotten into like niche echo chambers where I find most of the content I'm seeing is very like, Christian based. And I do enjoy that. I think we like to see content that content that we appreciate, that we're actually interested in. But I definitely see that shift in having something that, is like tactile that you can hold on to. And something like a magazine is something that, I know that subscription boxes have been like a large trend in, people ordering stuff and getting something monthly shipped to their house. So I think in the same sense, having something like a magazine, can sit on your coffee table and, all people can read, I think is something, and a space that has no censorship, like a print magazine, is really important. And I've even found myself, used to listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I've even found myself recently just purchasing actual hardcover books, just because it doesn't hurt your eyes, or you're not listening to something constantly, and you really have to almost put that extra effort in and take in that knowledge. And one thing I found, I used to work at a pharmacy, and we would get the local papers and all the print papers in every day. And I had one of the guys come in and tell me that he's like an older man. And he said, you should read the newspaper every day because it forces you to read stuff that you don't necessarily want to read, because you kind of have to read it front cover to back cover. Unlike when you're reading something on your phone or your laptop, you can kind of click off, go to the next story. But just having that paper, you have to kind of go front to back and then have to read through everything. So I'm hoping that people will see that shift as well.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. I kind of forgot about that. A couple weeks ago, I was at an older person's home in between services on a Sunday. and this older fellow had a paper at his house, like the National Post, and my parents used to get it like way back in the day. Like I remember like I read, it'd be like the sports section, so this isn't anything crazy, but like when I was like 12, whatever, read the paper just for fun. But like, yeah, the whole, just even the act of like flipping through it, I'm like, has like some nostalgic feel to it. It just never gets done. And yeah, the point is great about, you have to like at least like breeze through the opinion sections and the stories you're not really interested in, at least like, okay, read that through. Okay, I'm not that interested. Move on, next page, sort of thing. But yeah, the echo chamber thing is, yeah, it's a problem. So I hope people kind of shift to a more tactile world. I think people do appreciate it. Even I see it for myself in business too, right? Like people like a personal touch. If you're not afraid to get on the phone, to talk to them, and to deal with their issues in a personal manner, well, like one to one, instead of like sort of like through email even, or just in a more less personal way, let's say. People don't like that as much. So I think the shift to something more tactile is hopefully something that will continue to happen, and it would be great for us at RP, because I think we're well positioned to reach people and to capitalize on that. We've kind of worked through a ton of the outline. Honestly, you're very adept at bringing things together quickly, so I appreciate that. But I wanted to just kind of open the floor to any other topics you're interested about or interested in. One that comes to mind is just like maybe a general update on like what's going on in Ottawa, kind of a federal politics update. We're recording this like heading into the Christmas break, so things will kind of chill out and settle down for a while in Ottawa until the MPs get back again, probably late January. So kind of maybe give us a bit of a recap of like what's gone on during the fall session, and where do things stand broadly in federal politics, some of the key issues right now.
Yeah, so it's been interesting kind of just being there and seeing all of the issues rolling out on, a daily basis. I think the beginning of September was kind of big when we, had Justin Trudeau coming in, accusing the Indian government of, assassinating a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. So that kind of hit things right off with a bang. So, in regards to, the kind of international relations, that's kind of been a big story following these kind of past 4 months. But then, in regards to kind of the tension between conservatives and liberals, we've seen a lot with regards to the carbon tax. So we saw the other day, we had the big 30 hours of kind of House debates, constant. So it's been busy. There's lots of talk for a spring election. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. I think that they said that last year as well. But I mean, coming from, working for conservative MPs, I think it's been exciting kind of just speaking with constituents and hearing how the movement has been going, and just about I think that there is hope. For one thing that I didn't know that I would see working on the Hill was just the amount of Christians that are working there. Like every Friday we have something called Parliament Hill Christian Fellowship, and you kind of, when you're sitting at home watching the TV and seeing things happen, you're like, what is going on, right, with our government? And then just seeing that there are solid Christians that are working on the ground, that really believe, that really, have strong convictions in regards to, many different issues. And just seeing that is like really encouraging, because it's something that it's easy to kind of get down on and, just look at your TV and want to shut it off, or, so that's been one thing that just has been really encouraging. And yeah, I'm just been grateful for that kind of support, and seeing, how people have been connected either, through on the Hill, or, just the people working at ARPA, working to kind of work on different like pro-life issues, or yes.
For sure. That's a great point to for all of us to remember. I think that surprised me too when I went to work on the Hill a number of years ago already. Just the amount of Christians that were in that place and working on Parliament Hill. It can seem so dark and so dreary, and all the headlines are bad coming out of Ottawa, especially these days, it feels like. So it is good to know that there are faithful Christians laboring in that work environment, and that we should keep them in our prayers. And and keep an optimistic view. Like there are some wins, and there's not that Pierre is the end all be all or anything, but do you feel that like the polling is bearing out in terms of feedback you've seen from constituents or what you're hearing from fellow staffers on the Hill or MPs? Is there some real momentum behind the Conservative Party right now, and do you is that bearing out in real life?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the polling is really showing kind of the huge advantage that conservatives have over the liberals right now. I'm sure like many have said that, if an election were to happen today, it would, be a conservative majority, which yeah would be quite exciting. But I think you mentioned it's really important not to kind of look to politicians as our guide, as our savior or something like that. One thing that was really important I found the other day, we had a guest speaker at the Christian Fellowship, and he was just talking about how they run this prayer group and just about how when Stephen Harper was prime minister, it was quite easy for them to have people come in and come in to pray for our leader. And then when they had Trudeau come in, they found it was really hard for people to come in and join their prayer group, which just shows this kind of we are called to pray for our leaders, and no matter who that is, our leaders are ordained by God. So really being, praying through all circumstances is something that's really important. And I think just hearing that made me recognize that it's the gospel that changes everything at the end of the day, and that we need to just always have our hearts open to be praying for the people that are leading our country. So that's just something that kind of stood out to me hearing that the other day.
It's a good point. It can be a tough pill to swallow these days, and it could be an imprecatory prayer. That's always on the table as well. But yeah, we definitely should pray for our leaders regardless of who they are. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and if you don't have an answer, no problem, but is there anything going on with the pro-life caucus these days? I would assume Kelly Block would be an MP that's involved with that. Is there any movement, any plans with, and just for listeners, the pro-life caucus is a group of MPs in the Hill who meet together who are all pro-lifers and looking to advance a pro-life agenda on Parliament Hill. So is there anything going on with the pro-life caucus these days on Parliament Hill?
There's nothing too specific that
No.
that I really know about. No.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. Cool. I just figured, if I guess because Kathy Wagentall kind of took a bunch of that momentum lately, so then they'll have to get on their horse and think of something else. Okay, cool. Well, honestly, I think I kind of covered anything I thought about to cover, so I'll just leave the floor open for you. Is there any other issues you want to bring up, or I mean, if you have a question for me, by all means, or any questions for listeners to think about, I'll open the floor to your thoughts or opinions.
Yeah. What was kind of like your experience? You had a year working on the Hill. What was something that kind of stood out to you? Just kind of being on the ground, seeing that.
I think, well, personally, the biggest experience or the biggest lesson I drew out of that year was I came in as an 18-year-old fresh out of high school. I had, Arnold can tell you this too. I had hair down to my shoulders, which I ended up growing back again just for fun by at the end of it. But anywho, so yeah, I came in as like just a kid, didn't really know anything, but had somehow had the confidence I could do that job, and anyways, it worked out. It was just a year of learning how to become an adult, learning how to work in a work environment, in an office environment. I just done labor summer jobs growing up, so I never had an experience like that before. So those were some of definitely the bigger lessons I drew from that year. I think I made a lot of good, interesting, good connections. I think your point about Christians being involved in the Hill, that was definitely a big takeaway for me too. I didn't realize that. And of course, not just Reform people, there definitely are Reform people involved, but just Christians of every stripe. And even if we have our various different theological convictions, there's a lot of good, faithful, biblical Christians working on Parliament Hill. And I'm assuming you've probably been part of like a Thirsty Thursday here or there where they get together. And
I haven't went to one yet, but I have heard.
Those are fun. Yeah, Arnold likes to get involved in those too. It's often in his office in 1070 Valor there. So yeah, they're a lot of fun, and the Baptists and the Reformed and Pentecostals and everybody in between, they all get into it. The Catholics, of course. So there's lots of good fun to be had on the Thirsty Thursday theological debates. But yeah, that I would say those are kind of my primary like memories or lessons from that time period. But the program is called Brain and Boot. I would recommend it for anybody. It's a great experience. So if you want to get in touch with either, if you want to work on the Hill, you're young person listening to this, you're involved in, you're coming out of high school, or you're finishing your degree, or you took a gap year or whatnot, and you have an interest in politics, definitely reach out. And I can either probably to Alexandra or to myself, and we can kind of connect you and see if there's an opportunity there for you to experience Parliament Hill. But that's about it for me. Anything else you want to add before we kind of close out the show, Alexandra?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can promote the ARPA internship
For sure.
as well. I think that they are, it's really great opportunity. So I think they'll be starting it again, most likely this September. And if you're straight out of high school, or finished a undergraduate degree in the middle of one, I think it's great for anyone that's just wanting to get a feel for politics. And just also seeing, we had a lot of guest speakers come in. So whether it be, some people for different organizations like the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, we went to go visit their office the other day. Just seeing the different opportunities that are out there, whether it's, something like journalism or, writing public policy, which I didn't even know lots of these jobs existed. So if you're just interested in that, then I would recommend you applying. And I think that there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out of, stuff that ARPA is doing, stuff that RP is doing. And I'm just excited for the new year and what God has in store.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining the show. I just ask all our listeners, go and support the work that RP is doing. Obviously, listening to this podcast is support, but check out the print version. It's free. You can just ask for it in your local church if they don't have it, which most churches do. It's in pretty much every NAPARC church. I think that's the case now. Across Canada and the US. So if you don't have it, get in touch. We'll get you a copy. It's free. And if you like what we do, feel free to reach out and support us, whether that's through your listenership, your readership, viewership, or if financially, if you want to donate as well, that's always an option too. So with that, I think I'll close out the episode. So thanks everybody for listening, and it's been Real Talk. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen or watch the show. If you want to send us your feedback, and we'd love to hear it, please email us at reformedrealtalk@gmail.com. If you want to find us online or social media, we got a lot of great content there. Just search Reformed Real Talk and we should come right up. This show is created and produced by myself, Lucas Holtfluer, and Tyler Vanderwood, and our wonderful podcast manager who does all the editing is Mariah Tamiga. So we're really thankful for her contribution to the show as well. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time.